All right, thanks, Bob. As Bob said, my name is Mark Radtke. I'm with Integrys Energy Group. I'm responsible for corporate strategy and have been driving our involvement in the compressed natural gas markets. Now, Integrys Energy Group may not be a familiar name to you here. In this part of the country, we're best known as Wisconsin Public Service, and in fact, Integrys Energy Group is the old WPS Resources. We changed our name back in 2007 when we were growing outside the state of Wisconsin, acquiring other utilities, and just felt like with that expansion it was time to change our name. But today, as you can see on kind of our organizational chart here, we have 6 regulated utilities, natural gas distribution utilities as well as electric utilities. We're a 34% owner, the largest owner of American Transmission Company here in the state of Wisconsin. And we have a competitive energy business in Integrys Energy Services. Now this company operates in the northeast quarter of the U.S., providing natural gas and electricity to customers in markets where customers can choose their supplier. We also have a renewable energy business that we hold in Integrys Energy Services. There we're focused on primarily rooftop solar, so photovoltaic solar projects, and landfill gas to energy projects. And then most recently our expansion has been in the compressed natural gas industry. We've launched a business there and acquired 2 companies earlier this month in Pinnacle CNG Systems and Trillium USA. So together with Pinnacle and Trillium, we bring 150 years of utility and energy industry experience and 20 years of CNG industry experience. Between the 3 companies, we've been involved in 80 different stations around the U.S. We're vertically integrated in terms of having manufacturing capability, so we manufacture the compressor stations that serve large fleets, as well as have a group that does design, engineering, construction management of CNG, complete turnkey CNG stations, as well as then the operation and maintenance of those stations going forward. We're the second largest provider of CNG in the country. We deliver about 45 million gallons, so gasoline gallon equivalent of CNG on an annual basis. Now, Bob talked a little bit in his introductory comments around about the dynamics of the natural gas market. I spent a lot of years in that business. I'd love to spend the afternoon talking about the natural gas market. I won't do that. I'd be happy to answer any questions about shale gas and hydrofracking, those types of things. But the point that I wanted to make sure we captured today was that for all of the good news that there is in the natural gas, in the domestic natural gas markets today, compressed natural gas is not just about natural gas. The value proposition is actually more heavily driven by what happens with the alternative, that being petroleum fuels, than it is natural gas. You know, petroleum fuels, as Bob mentioned, it's tied to a global crude oil market. And with that, we need to factor in global demand growth as well as supply challenges and global unrest. Conversely, we've got a very abundant supply of domestic natural gas. And my third bullet point might seem a little bit peculiar, where I say CNG is less sensitive to natural gas price changes. And the reason that I say that is because if you're fueling on diesel today, and you pull up and diesel is $3.80 at the pump, a good 85% of that cost, if we're including taxes in there, so we should probably strip taxes out, but the pump price excluding taxes, at least 85% of that cost is the underlying diesel commodity itself, the commodity that you could buy or sell on a commodities exchange. The balance of that is transportation costs, costs to operate the station, that type of thing. In the case of natural gas, only about a third of the cost. So if you've got, you pull up to a commercial station in California, you're going to see a pump price of $2.10 a gallon. Only about a third of that is actually the natural gas costs. The balance of that is the cost for the compression equipment, the operation and maintenance. Electricity cost takes a fair bit of electricity to make compressed natural gas. So if the price of natural gas rises, that only has, that has a very muted impact on the overall price of CNG that you see at the pump versus what we all experience today with diesel and natural gas. I mean, the price is up and down on a daily basis because of global fluctuations in crude oil markets. So with natural gas, we see a much more stable price. And in fact, the chart, the graph on this slide is from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, their long-term energy outlook, and they're providing a price projection on natural gas versus diesel fuel out through 2035, and you can see the stability and moderate cost of natural gas compared to diesel fuels. So once you've convinced yourself of the compelling value proposition that compressed natural gas offers to you, then the next question is, how do I go about obtaining CNG? And there are a couple of approaches. First, really the historical approach is on the right-hand side of this slide, and we call that a time fill station. So this is a station that is typically a proprietary station. It's if you're a fleet operator, you may invest in this on your own. It lends itself really well to fleets that return to base every night and they're idle overnight. So they can be hooked up to a fueling hose and then filled over a 6 or 8 hour time frame. The economics of a station like that are a function of your particular fleet. You make the capital investment, the more fuel you move through it, the lower the overall cost of that capital investment. Another approach is a fast fill approach, and this is really what we're accustomed to as fuel consumers today. You pull up to the pump, you get a conventional fueling experience, an experience that does vary from station to station. There are some public time fill stations that might receive, they might deliver 2 or 3 or 4 gallon per minute fill into your vehicle. That's not really acceptable for heavy duty vehicles. So you want to see something on the order of 8 to 10 gallon per minute fills, something that's as fast as the vehicle can actually take the fuel. You want to have that station designed for scalability, so that as traffic through that station grows, the volume that the station delivers continues to grow, again, to always ensure that we're getting good, fast fills regardless of how busy a station happens to be. And then in the fast fill category, we do have portable options. This is something that was actually pretty attractive to a large customer of ours who's in the telecommunications business, and if you listed them alphabetically, they'd be the first one. But they had to prepare for Hurricane Irene that hit the East Coast, and they have purchased from us portable stations. So we moved those stations around to key locations so that when they were in a situation where they knew power was going to be out, they could get fuel to their fleets, so their fleets could continue restoring telecommunications service along that eastern seaboard. Some of the station considerations, so the model that we have at Integrys is to build commercial access fast fill stations that meet or exceed the status quo experience. So our view is that the last thing you want to do as a consumer is compromise in the refueling experience that you have with any vehicle. As soon as you ask a consumer to compromise, it puts you in the category of being an alternative fuel. And CNG does not need to be classified as an alternative fuel. In many ways, Bob mentioned some of them today, it's a superior fuel to the status quo. So we don't want to deteriorate that experience by by providing an unsatisfactory or a slow fill. What we do is we go around and we co-locate our compressed natural gas refueling infrastructure at existing strategic locations. So places where stations exist today and traffic volume, freight volumes exist, we will then bring that capability to those stations that have access to natural gas and electricity. That provides kind of a full service, a full featured refueling environment. So your drivers don't need to make a second stop. You know, you don't have to go one place to get the vehicle refueled and then another place to get a cup of coffee and so on. We design our stations for low life cycle cost. Station reliability, you know, that goes without saying. You know, if you pull up to a gas station today and a pump happens to be out of service, you know, they put a paper bag on the handle of the pump. If a compressed natural gas station is out of business, you need to put a bag over the entire facility. That's just simply not acceptable. So reliability is a given, and we need to take that one step further and ensure that we've got dependable fill rates every time, regardless of how busy that station might be. And then our CNG equipment employs smart controls to manage the overall fueling equipment so that real-world variables like temperature and the amount of traffic at that station are all compensated for by the equipment to ensure that everything works flawlessly every time. So let's just take a quick look at what's involved in a CNG station design. First of all, we connect to the local utility. That's where the natural gas is received. And it comes from the utility at various pressures. Sometimes it might be maybe a 25-pound pressure. The higher the pressure, the better from a station's perspective. Maybe 100 pounds or 150-pound inlet would be just, you know, a fantastic supply from the utility. Now, there are lots of quality standards around the natural gas that comes through the pipeline distribution system, so we don't really have to worry about variation in BTU content or the chemical composition, anything like that. We can have a lot of confidence in that. But the one thing we want to make sure is that we don't get moisture into the system. So right out of the gate, we run the gas through a dryer prior to then running it into a compressor station. Now, a compressor, you know, this is time-tested technology. The compressors that we use in a CNG station are the same thing that we use out in the oil and gas patch, where they're producing natural gas and pumping it down the pipeline. It's well understood technology, but compressors are absolutely a maintenance item, especially when they start and stop a lot. So part of the station design and part of our smart controls is to minimize the frequency of starts and stops of the main compressor. That compressor is then filling a storage bank. Depending upon the station requirements, we might have anywhere between 90 to 1,000 gallons of, when I say gallons, I always mean gasoline gallon equivalent, 1,000 gallons of storage that are on hand to meet any surge requirements that station could have from multiple vehicles pulling up. And then a device that we put in our stations, it's a patented technology that we have to really ensure the high deliverability to the dispenser station, is something called a hydraulic intensifier. Now, the magic of this device is that we're pulling natural gas from storage, regardless of how much gas is in storage. That hydraulic intensifier takes the natural gas and delivers it to the dispenser at full pressure all the time, regardless of if storage is full or 50% or even down to 10 or 20%. The nice thing about the hydraulic intensifier is that it runs on it's a hydraulically driven device. It's not a compressor. Recall I said compressors don't like it when you start and stop frequently. Hydraulics don't care at all. I mean, they're a very low maintenance item. They can, they can start at a moment's notice, shut back down, restart again, no big deal, and they'll do that for many, many years with very, very low maintenance costs. So that's kind of a key component in ensuring that the vehicle that is connected to that dispenser station is always receiving a rapid fill, regardless of how much gas might happen to be in storage. And that varies depending upon how many vehicles have pulled through recently. So it maybe sounds a little bit, a little bit involved, perhaps compared to a traditional, storage tank with a pump to fill your vehicle. It is, The good news is that these systems are skid mounted, so it makes delivery very simple. There is no underground storage with CNG. The equipment is expandable. We can put it in a weatherproof, sound attenuating enclosures, and it is to some extent relocatable because it's sitting on a concrete pad at a site. It's not buried down into the ground, making relocation really expensive. So when it comes to making CNG really viable, we think the key is bringing together the capabilities that exist in the gas utilities around the country, the infrastructure, CNG infrastructure that I briefly described today, and then of course vehicles and vehicle availability, which is growing really rapidly. I wanted to address just a couple of the questions that were mentioned. One was conversion costs around heavy-duty trucks. The most common heavy-duty truck is powered today by a Cummins 9-liter engine. That's an engine it's a spark ignition engine that was designed from the ground up to be run on compressed natural gas. So there was a question about efficiency. There is an inherent efficiency derate between a diesel engine and a spark ignition engine. And so if you're today running a diesel truck and you're considering buying a new Kenworth with this Cummins engine in it, you have to take into consideration an expectation that Cummins engine is going to be less fuel efficient. Now, a Cummins engine is not as the fuel efficiency derate is not as much as if you would just convert a traditional gas engine today. If you convert a traditional gas engine, an engine that was designed to run on gasoline, you could expect to see a 15 to 20% efficiency derate from diesel to that traditional gas engine. The Cummins engine is designed to run on natural gas, so they're able to run higher compression ratios. It's early, but we're understanding between a 5 and 10% efficiency derate. So when comparing diesel to CNG, you need to keep that in mind. When comparing gasoline to CNG, the reason that there's no appreciable difference is because the gasoline gallon equivalent, I mean, we did that conversion to give you the energy content that is necessary to get comparable fuel mileage. That's why it seems like kind of remarkable that, wow, CNG is the same as gasoline. Well, that's kind of by design. With respect to the cost of conversion, we have the new, so Cummins has their 9-liter engine out. They are just road testing now their new 12-liter engine, which so about 400 horsepower that gives the vehicle. That really is a game changer engine. That covers a lot larger fleet use than the 9 does. We got one of the first ones of those down at our Midland, Texas manufacturing facility. We put the tankage on that vehicle and did the full fuel system conversion for about $30,000 on that. Now that gives us 90 gallons of onboard storage. So it really is kind of a question of how much tankage, how much storage do you want on that vehicle? If you needed, say, 120 or 130 gallons, then you're maybe looking at $40,000 incremental cost. If you can get by with 50 or 60 gallons of tankage, obviously then you're down in the $15,000 or $20,000 category. So when somebody talks about their conversion cost, the first thing to ask them is how many gallons of storage do you have on? Because that is the big cost associated with the conversion. And then one other comment around converting existing vehicles. The conversion costs in the U.S., I think somebody had cited $4,000 to $6,000. Those costs have been fairly high for existing engines because of the EPA certification that is required on those. Earlier this year, the EPA came out with a rulemaking dramatically relaxing the requirements for vehicle conversions that are at least 2 years old or older. And so it's our expectation that we'll start to see more aftermarket conversion kits for the older vehicles at much lower costs. You get into other countries that don't have the certification requirements, and you see conversion kits in the $1,000, or in some case even the sub-$1,000 price range. So little perspective on conversion rates there. Do we want to do questions, or how do you want to? Okay, sounds good.